But let's kind of just talk about the problem that we have out there at the moment. And I don't necessarily want to dwell on it too much because we all know what the statistics are. But 88% of Black businesses are self-funded. And while that is commendable on one hand, that's a really difficult journey for a lot of business founders, especially when the average amount being put in to start that business is just 14K. Why do you think that there are some of these issues? And why is it just that bit harder for Black founders to raise money, whether it be, like a business loan or investment via, VC?
Yeah, so I think on my side, the one thing I've seen and some feedback I've given a lot of VCs is that the networks that they are going into, right? So who they go to look for, what is deemed as like the archetype archetype founder is also problematic. So where usually they go to source or find people to invest in usually isn't really the diverse pool. And I think VC funding suffers from a lot of the same issues that the tech industry in general actually suffers from, which is it can be a very close-knit referral based community where it's not as open as like everyone can just go to it. It's almost like, oh, you have to know this person, and when you know this person you get invited to this event. And I think that doesn't seed very well for when you already have a group of people in any group where it's not very diverse in the starting, and then everyone's inviting or trying to find people who look in their image or from their networks. It kind of just boxes out Black and ethnic minority founders and also female founders as well, because they're not really part of that group and they're not being invited to the right events as well. And secondly, the point I was making earlier about an archetypal founder as well is then people are then looking for people who've already worked in these tech industries, which is very rare if you look at the statistics of people from ethnic minorities and women who are in these tech firms. So for them to then have that experience before they even start the company is also going to be rare as well. So I'd say it's recruitment and also what they're actually looking for and understanding, caring more. I think the emphasis needs to be more on the problem they're trying to solve and their ability to do it rather than their previous jobs and their resume and being in the right circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are now joined by Mr. Karl Lokko. Great to have you here with us.
Pleasure to be.
Great. Karl, can you introduce yourself? What is your experience and what has your experience been raising finance?
I have two experiences. So initially, when I first started raising on a sweat equity basis, it was basically me opening entrepreneurs to my network and kind of brokering sit downs and making certain warm intros, which was enabled via the graces of nepotism, to kind of put context into just how dark the Black book had to be for a Black man to be able to kind of broker these situations. I was on the friends and family list for Kensington Palace, and just really kind of locked in to particular circles. And so off the front of that, to be able to raise certain seed, I was able to do so. Now actually moving away from the angel investor, and now I'm actually approaching firms and VCs. Obviously, it is, again, very WhatsApp group heavy, very referral heavy, as Wilfred already took a nod to. So warm intros are a possibility for me. However, they still aren't able to get past the tribalism, essentially. The fact that, you invest in someone where you see potential and your own potential, the hurdles you've had to overcome, your capacity. So then when you see someone else that reminds you of you, you'd be like, I see some of me in you. Unfortunately, it's a bit harder when the pigmentation, the cultural kind of differences or the socioeconomic background differs, because then it is more of an alien kind of encounter, of which maybe their lens isn't so dialed into. So I would say I've had an experience in terms of raising seed where that was pretty, not easy, but possible because of relationships. And then even now with those relationships, now moving to the more kind of institutional pockets, I have definitely experienced a lot of hurdles. for sure.
Yeah, of course. And that's something that a lot of the people in the audience will have experienced or are going to experience, unfortunately. So just to take it back a step or two, Karl, just to your previous life and your previous experience, because it is phenomenal. And if anyone doesn't know your story, they should definitely Google you and find out a bit more. But you also had to raise money to help you with your kind of like anti-gang incentives that you was doing, a few years back. What did you have to do then to, speak to the right people? What actions did you take to make sure that, people were listening to you and then actually wrote you that check?
There was an array of things. We got creative. So, I mean, from hosting dinners, maybe finding a supporter in a Viscountess and hosting dinners at her home, or putting on charity galas and getting it commissioned by a farmer, or going to the extent of doing adventure philanthropy with the Branson family, where we would actually kind of like climb literal mountains and have a tracker on us so they can see like the energy exerted and kind of like say, you know what, these guys are really singing for their supper. That was one of the draws, I mean, going and round with the begging bowl, doing the dance and the shimmy. Basically also having to have a slightly mercenary approach to it, also in terms of knowing that they have CSR departments, and knowing that even if it's not a heart move, it's a necessary move they may need to make to be able to afford them some level of immunity to maneuver, and capitalizing on that also. So I mean, there was definitely an array of different kind of techniques and ways in which we would basically raise that funding, and I would go about kind of trying to fill the pot. But I would say it was a bit dramatic. So there was no way that wasn't dramatic. It's all drama, very dramatic, even though there's so much money out there. So yeah.
Of course, all right, fair enough. What I'm hearing though is a network, right? Yeah. So making sure that you're in the right circles and speaking to the right people and building out that network. So Wilfred, just taking it back to you, and in terms of your story and where you are with Audiomob and how you've raised money, other than having a really great product, what has helped you get to the point where you became an investable company? And I know you mentioned initially that, you made sure that you had the metrics that you was able to go with. But what else did you do? You as a person?
I think, for me, and I always say this to everyone who's trying to raise money is because I know there's the big thing with everyone's always just like, just start. And I'm always the opposite. I'm always like, no, don't just start, please actually like evaluate what you're doing. So I think for us, the big thing that really helps, as you said, apart from building an MVP, so building very basic products and actually showing people, it was also getting a lot of feedback. So we went to like 30 different investors, and even when they said no, like I think only one of those 30, I reckon, said no the first time. Actually, even the one that said yes said no the first time. But what we always made sure we did was get feedback. This is something I always say to people around getting feedback around the deck structure, around stuff that we're missing, things that they wanted us to talk more around, like, for example, how the product was more defensible. So I think definitely getting that feedback and actually implementing it definitely helps in terms of this, like it may be little things, like the order in which you show your deck. If people be like, oh, that's not really something. But then there's so many like heat maps that you can put over your deck, and you actually see the slides that people actually spend time on. So you actually see that this slide people have spent 15 seconds on. The other side, people just skip by. And you then start to realize what is the most important things in the deck and what you can actually delete and what you should actually keep. So I think actually being very methodical actually helps in terms of it actually helps you to build something that people will actually be engaged by. Then I think the next thing is making sure you know your product and in every single way. So what the actual problem is, what the challenge is, what the traction is, evidence of people actually having a desire to want to consume or use your products. Then after that, also explaining the founder background. And yeah, I won't lie, it does help that me and my co-founder Christian have like Google and Facebook backgrounds. But one thing I always say to people is don't let that derail you if you don't, because you have people like the founder of Hopin, who doesn't have any of those companies in his resume, but he showed in his background of him as why he's the best person to lead the company, how he used, and also his experience with these different platforms, and how his platform would therefore be better. So I think it's not necessarily about just having the brand names. If you can show why you as a person would be the best person for this, whether you've been a consumer your whole life of all of these products and you've seen all of the little like shortcomings in them, or whether that you've done like almost a thesis on it, or you just have a general interest in it, I would say that also helps as well.
Yes, that's great advice. And I mean, this is Black Tech Fest, right? So I have to ask the question, but do you think that you, or the people in the audience, have to do anything above and beyond what you've just described to ensure that they get the attention of the investors to receive that investment because they're Black founders?
I think to be honest, there's if we all know there's bias in society, I think it's very clear to see, and actually there's been loads of evidence of that actually as well, like people sending in their decks as different people, and then I think one lady got her boyfriend who wasn't Black to send it through, and it got a different response. So I think we'll be naive to say that there's no kind of bias in this world. I think that's evident fact. But what I will say is, I think in terms of counteracting that, and this is why I like to appeal to the nature of a lot of what VC is, which is that they are trying to get returns on their investment. They're just really trying to, well, on the high end, try and get 10x, but anything between that is what they're trying to achieve. And I think appealing to the capitalistic and the monetary gain that someone can gain from your product, and this is why I'm very always around numbers, because it's like you can deny a lot of other things, but you can't deny that I've actually sent you a bunch of numbers and that they actually add up. I know if you actually just followed the maths, you'd be able to get a 10. So I would say, in terms of trying to break through a lot of these unconscious biases and conscious bias, I should also say, I think a lot of it is around making sure your presentation is a very fact-based, is very methodical, and you present yourself in the best light in terms of why you are the best person, right? Like you are the best person because XYZ facts, not opinions, but these are the facts of why you are better than everyone else to create this business, or you are best placed, and you and your team are best placed to do this.